Hello world, my name is Nikkiesha McLeod, and you're listening to When We See Each Other, presented by Stereoactive Media. When We See Each Other is a podcast that focuses on music and art by BIPOC, queer, trans, and non-binary artists, as well as artists I've met and known for some time. This week, we're interviewing singer-songwriter and also a good friend of mine, Mackenzie Shivers. First, we'll listen to her track, Martha's Vineyard, which is off of her upcoming album, Rejection Letter. Rejection Letter is going to be released on April 2nd. And after listening to the single, Martha's Vineyard, we'll jump right into the interview. Here we go.
Didn't speak to me.
Hi, Mackenzie. Welcome to When We See Each Other. Thank you for joining us today.
Oh, thank you for having me, Nikki. It is an absolute pleasure to be here.
So, how does it feel the day after President Biden's inauguration? Oh my God.
I'm feeling pretty great. Like yesterday, I woke up and I didn't sleep very well, and I was like realizing how nervous I was about yesterday, and then I watched the swearing in, and I just all of a sudden I was like, "Oh my gosh." And I just started
Really?
sobbing, and it feels good. Like yesterday felt good. I don't know. I think I just had so much anxiety leading up to it that I didn't realize how good it was going to feel.
Right. Yeah,
How
no,
about
I was
you?
pretty worried that there was going to be a massive attack by some white nationalist group. and,
Exactly.
and
Exactly.
I was just like, I'm not going outside.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. It kind of felt like the election just never truly ended. I think maybe because he didn't concede. It just felt so drawn out. And then yesterday I was like, man, is this really gonna happen? Is it gonna happen? And then it did.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
yeah.
Anyway, so yeah, victory. And
Dream.
yeah, and just now we just have to do the work. So yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes. It's I feel like finally we're in a place now where hopefully work can get done, whereas before it just felt very hopeless. And now I feel like maybe there's a shot for this to happen, because there's new people in the White House, so feels
Right.
good.
Yeah.
That feels good. But I agree with you. I feel like the work now begins.
Anyway, I wanted to start with a little background, like what inspired you to first start making music?
To, honestly, I was so young when I started making it that I don't really have a memory of what drew me to it. It's just more I just it was just kind of a part of me from when I was very, very little. And I just remember or my parents kind of tell me stories of when I was very young and going to birthday parties when I was 3, and how a lot of the kids were playing dress up, and I was kind of in the corner with this little toy keyboard that I had found just by myself, just doing my own thing. And at that point they were like, "Oh, okay, I think this is a thing that she's drawn to." And luckily growing up we had a piano in my house, so I just kind of started tinkering around on the piano when I was really little, and then started writing little songs when I was young. And then my parents put me in piano lessons, which was great. And so yeah, just kind of I feel like music and I found each other when we were very, very young. I was very young. Yeah.
It's beautiful.
Oh,
It's really
thanks.
Do you mentioned that you started writing songs. Do you remember the first song that you ever wrote and what it was about?
I actually do remember it. I remember it very well because it was about a friend of my my best friend at the time.
Mhm.
And the title was succinct and to the point. It was Natalie is my best friend. So it just really told the whole
Cute.
story in the title. And I remember that very vividly. I guess we must have been quite close. I don't know. I guess that's what inspired me to write my first song.
So by the time this interview airs, you would have had two singles out in anticipation for your album Rejection Letter. I
Yes.
wanted to start with Martha's Vineyard, which dropped in January. In the song, you state, "I'm trying to get mad, but I'm afraid of anger." And overall, the song sounds really edgy and with heavy guitar and a rock beat, driving the whole vibe. Can you talk about what you were hoping to achieve and what the song is about?
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you for calling it edgy, because that's what what I'm going for in this whole record is just edgier for me, just kind of pushing boundaries. Martha's Vineyard, I mean, that line, I'm trying to get mad, but I'm afraid of anger. That's just something I've actually been working through in therapy, and then just started working through in music. In this record, in that song, is I just realized how uncomfortable I am with expressing anger. If someone's mad at me, it just really wrecks me. I don't know how to handle it very well. I don't really know how to handle how to tell other people I'm mad at them. It's just something like I realized, wow, I'm really uncomfortable with this. And I think that, I realized like I have a couple memories of getting angry in the past and like it just being met with, a little bit of dismissal and sometimes even shame, and just realizing like, I don't know, I just hear, other women have told me that too, of like, oh, I don't feel like there's room for me, in certain situations to get mad. So I was like, this is something I think to explore and talk about, is anger. And sadness is something I'm more comfortable with in music and in my life, but anger, not so much. So that's just something I'm working on.
Yeah, yeah. That's interesting that you brought up like the fact that women are not allowed to be angry. And there's no space for them to be angry. There's always this sort of thing where they need to be cheerful and, polite, and maybe they can be sad, but, for the most part, they can just only be one thing.
Totally. Yes. Yeah. And I'm like, fuck it. Like can I say fuck on this, or should I?
Yes, you can. You can.
I'm like, fuck it. I'm mad. Like, I'm mad about things. Like, there's a lot to be mad about. And I think like it's really good and healthy to be able to say that. And, this song also came out like at the beginning of the pandemic. And I was also just feeling very like stuck in, like literally stuck, like inside, and just kind of realizing how angry I felt about what was happening in the world. And so that's just like another theme on the record is kind of the state of the modern world, and allowing yourself to feel things about that.
Yeah. I mean, it's important. I think that actually, I really think, honestly, being angry right now is sort of being hopeful. In a sense, like, it's just like you're actually not desensitized, because you're actually feeling something and you're reacting to it. And so that to me is kind of like hope in itself. So yeah,
I love that. That's such a beautiful, like, empowering way to think about it. And like, now that you say that, that really resonates. Like, I hadn't thought about it in those specific terms, but no, that makes so much sense. Cause yeah, like feeling numb is like the scariest thing, I think.
Right.
Like you're right. Anger can be tied to hope. I think that's awesome.
So in contrast, the track Afraid is very contemplative. And when exactly is that going to drop in February?
You know what? That's still TBD.
Okay.
We're kind of seeing how this Martha's tracks, and then kind of like figuring, because like the news cycle too right now, we like there's so much leading up to this week, and there's been so much going on that it's like releasing music sort of feels like kind of dodging minefields a little bit.
Yeah.
So we're kind of seeing like, when it makes sense. But hopefully by the time this airs, the song will be out. And if not, then it can be a nice preview for people on here.
Yeah. And as I was about to say about it, is like I've listened to it like a bunch of times. Like, I'm obsessed with both that and Martha's Vineyard. But I found this track, Afraid, to be more constrained and like contemplative. And what stuck with me was cannot be afraid and still be free. I am afraid what will become of me. I hope I got that right. Did I get that right?
That's it. You got it.
So can you talk about what inspired you to write this, and what it is it related to?
This song really, I think, started like a stream of consciousness, which is how I think a lot of my songs that I end up keeping around actually start that way. I don't know if that happens with you when you write, but just kind of like all the thoughts just kind of like pour out, and then all of a sudden I kind of realize, oh, this is a song. Like this is a thing. So that's how it was written. It kind of wrote itself. Like I was sitting at the piano, kind of messing around with that introduction, that piano intro. And then the lyrics kind of fell into place. And at that time, I think I was feeling afraid of a lot of things, but in particular, the climate crisis. And I was just feeling very overwhelmed by it. And I realized like that was a big thing coming out in the song. And, at the time too, like Derby, my husband, Derby, and I, we'd we're talking so much about like, do we want to have children? Like the whole question of like having a child with the world in this state is so scary. And like at the end of the day, that actually did not hamper our desire. Like that is something we want. But it's still very scary. And I know people who have decided not to have children because of that. And I know people who still go on and have children because like at the end of the day, I think, you got to do what you want and what's best for you. And I don't judge people either way on it. But it's been a point of conversation like in my life. And so that was something I was thinking about a lot when I wrote the song.
It seems like most of the songs are, well, I don't know. I'm guessing based on these two tracks, like this album is going to be focused mostly on what is happening around you and what is happening in the world. Can you talk a little bit about that? How does that, both these tracks represent the album coming out in April?
You're right. It very much is a reflection of kind of what's going on in the world and then how it relates to what's going on in my own personal life. I mean, the record is called Rejection Letter. So it's really like my rejection of the status quo, of what is going on, the political unrest, social injustice, just like so much hate and violence and just darkness. And also kind of going along with that, like kind of shedding this, I don't know, for a lot of my life, I feel like I've just tried to be like this good girl. And I think I'm just kind of trying to like shed that and show, not completely, like that's still a part of who I am, but just show like more sides of me through this music. And I think that's like all we as artists can do is like be authentic and be truthful with who we are and share our stories and know that somewhere out there, other people will connect to those stories and feel less alone. And so that's really what Rejection Letter is.
Yeah. Yeah. I wondered about like why you chose that. It's so interesting because it's just like, I was like, did she apply to something and got a rejection letter?
Well, actually, yes, that also happened too.
Oh, it did.
Yeah,
Okay.
yes, it's I actually also I applied to this artist grant. It was like a women in music grant that
Hmm.
I just like really like put my guts into, and I spent so much time on it, and I was like, oh, I want this so badly. And I knew that it was competitive, but I still wanted it. And I like allowed myself to really want it. And I got that letter, that email being like,
Hmm. Thank
sorry,
you.
but no, or like try again next time.
Right.
And I was like really, I was gutted. Like I was sad and I like wanted to let myself mourn that. And so the song Rejection Letter, like there's a line at the end of it that mentions a rejection letter. And like that's specifically kind of what I was thinking of, but also it like means, it goes beyond that in the song. But that is something actually that crossed my mind when I wrote it.
Back to like, Martha's Vineyard and Afraid. Will the songs from the album, you already mentioned Rejection Letter, will they follow the same pattern as Martha's Vineyard and Afraid? What should, people expect and what are the themes that are accompanying each for the whole fabric of the album itself?
Whole fabric of the album. I mean, really it so instrumentation wise, it's interesting because Martha's is one of two guitar driven songs. Like I started writing a lot on the guitar during the beginning of the pandemic and fit some of those songs into this record in a really exciting way. And like some of them we took into the studio as guitar songs and they stayed guitar songs. And one I took in as a guitar song and then it ended up being like a synth weird electronic song. So like that was really fun playing around with that. There's still a lot of piano on it. There's strings, there's, bass and drums, kind of my core band sound. But I don't know, we just had like a lot of fun playing around with like those more like electronic elements and taking something and putting it in, like trying it in the studio and being like, do we like this like it is, or do we want to completely like mess with it and like fuck it up? So like sonically it's like kind of an electroacoustics kind of mix. And then thematically, yeah, just like, we already talked about anger, fear. You know, to be really frank with you, there's a lot on there, like about kind of what I mentioned earlier. I've spent a lot of time in the past few years, like contemplating what it would mean to like be a mother, trying to become a mother, like what does that look like? What would that look like for me? And it's something I think, I think a lot of people just assume that, especially like 'cause I'm married, to a man, that the two of us will have kids. I think that's just like assumed a lot. And it's something we've talked about so much, and actually have been like trying for a while and have not been successful, unfortunately. But also leading up to that, like we had a lot of questions and of being like, is this the right path? Like, I don't know. And I just think it's something that people don't talk about a lot. And so I kind of wanted to be honest about it and talk about it in life and in the music too.
Yeah, I did notice that track, Kids. I remember
Yes.
you performing that song, and it really stuck with me.
Mm.
So it's so definitely, yeah, that definitely speaks to what you're talking about in terms of like talking about having children, and in this world where everything is so scary, and it almost feels like, are you being selfish by bringing someone into the world? um
Hmm.
so
Totally.
yeah.
Totally. And I wrestle with that a lot. And it's funny because I mentioned that to a woman I know who does not have children. And she's like, I can't tell you how many times people have told me I'm selfish for not having children. And I was like, it's a lose-lose.
Yeah, exactly. Wow,
Therefore,
that's
my theory of do what you want, do
yeah.
what you think is right for you. Because
What is their argument around like the being selfish for not bringing someone into the world?
I don't know. She didn't really elaborate, but what I could imagine is like, I don't know, maybe it's like people who think like, oh, you're like, you as a woman, it's your job to like bring
Oh my
children into
God.
the world. Like that's so messed up. But like, I'm like, why else would it be selfish?
Yeah.
I don't know. I think that's pretty messed up.
That's really extreme.
It's really extreme. Like it really is. It really is. Oh my gosh. But like I've totally asked myself that question so many times. Like Derby and I've had the longest like philosophical discussions about like,
Mhm.
having children and what it means to like bring children into the world right now. And like he said something that really stuck with me that I don't know, I guess I just never really thought about this before, but he was like, I really believe that like in life, the best we can do is leave the world better
And
than
it
we
already
came
is.
into it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he was like, you know what? Us bringing a child into the world, will that make it a better place? He's like, I don't know. He's like, but if we do, then we would just do our damnedest and we would do our best to like raise that child in a way that it would make the world a little bit a better place. And I think that's like all the best like any of us can do in our lives, really.
Right.
Whether you have kids or you don't have kids, or, the
Exactly.
kids aside, like in general, I think that's the best any of us can do.
Yeah. Yeah. So just to go back to, you mentioned the recording process for this album. I know that you recorded it during the height of the pandemic. Can you talk about how that happened? Like, how did you do it, and what that experience was like?
It was pretty wild. Like, well, the wildest part was like just figuring out how to do it, because originally I wanted to do the whole album live,
Mm-hmm.
kind of like we did your EP. Like,
Yeah.
I just love that energy of everybody in the room. And like, there's just nothing like that. And that's how I initially envisioned the record.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I wrote, the new songs on the guitar, and then it was like becoming very apparent that I was not going to be able to do, the tracking the way I initially envisioned. I realized like, okay, I think that I want to do this, and there's a way to do it. It's just going to look differently. So I went up to Woodstock for a week, and I tracked with Kevin Salem, who produced the record with me, and he's an amazing musician and producer, engineer, kind of like jack of all trades. And it was just the two of us, and like we were almost always in separate rooms. Like he was almost always in the control room, I was in the live room. And then if we were like listening together, we were socially distanced, had our masks on, and so it felt very safe. And we just like really dug in, and I spent a lot of time on the piano, on the vocals, on the guitar. I spent a week on those things, which usually I'm doing everything in 4 days with the whole band. And you know how it goes. Like if you're in the studio like that, recording live with everybody, you're also like the band manager, and you're kind of like, you're trying to, you're making sure everything's staying on track. Right. Yeah, exactly. And so you're wearing many hats, and like that can be really great, but it was also nice to just do it differently and be like, okay, I can just focus on this right now. Right. And we kind of like set a really great framework and groundwork. And then Cody tracked the drums in Woodstock after I went up there. So he went up there separately. Then Yuka did the bass the same way. And I was FaceTimed in so that I could, be a part of it. And then we had strings recorded by a cellist named Oliver Krauss in Los Angeles, and he's incredible. And he did cello, viola, violin. I had a great French hornist named Kira Sims do the French horn remotely. So it just it all came together that way, just remote. And I mean, honestly, I couldn't be happier with how it sounds. So it was really fun. I was like, damn, we did it. Like, yeah. And it kind of felt like a rebellion of its own. Like as an independent artist, like I think, releasing music at all right now, like making art at all in the world, like is kind of a rebellion. Right. And like doing it, us as like true indie artists, like making something during the pandemic, I was like, no matter what happens with this felt really good. And it felt like, I don't know. Yeah, it felt like a rebellion in itself.
Yeah. Yeah. And how long did it take? How long did it take overall for everyone to get their stuff together? And then, because I think you did this in June, right?
I started in June. We did like a lot of pre-production before that. So just kind of passing around, like me sending Kevin songs and us working on arrangement stuff, tweaking the songs ahead of time. So then I tracked in June. Then Cody, I think, went up the next month, and then Yuka the next month, and then Oliver did the strings the next month. And so I think it was finished like in November total. Like it was mixed and mastered, I think, in November. Okay. So yeah. Wow. I mean, a few months, yeah.
Yeah. Wow. So you mentioned, just to go back like a little bit, I know I keep jumping around, but
no, you're good.
You said that you not only did started using the guitar. Like I know your main instrument is the piano, but on this album you've been working on the guitar. Can you talk about that experience of like working with a new instrument that you're not really, that's not like your backbone?
Totally. Yeah. I had this old guitar that I brought with me because at the beginning of the pandemic, Derby and I were lucky enough to go to Cape Cod because a good friend of ours, his family had a house there that wasn't being used, and it just kind of worked out really, really well and very fortunately for us. And so I brought this guitar. We kind of just were like, we don't know what's going on, so let's just like pack a suitcase and bring what we need. And to me, I was like, well, I need an instrument, so let me grab this guitar, even though I don't really play it. And so I just kind of found myself like in this new setting and kind of like slowly realizing like what was happening around me and realizing like, okay, all of my like obligations that I had, I don't really have them right now. Everything's kind of at a standstill. And that actually freed me up to write a lot. Like I didn't expect that, but I just, I realized I was having a lot of fun, like just playing with the guitar, just playing around with it, like messing around with different tunings, just kind of seeing what I liked, seeing what felt good. I was like watching Laura Marling's Instagram like videos where she was doing tutorials of the guitar and different tunings. And I was like, cool, I'll like tune into these. And then I just like, on the piano, because I am like trained in it and I studied it, I have like, it's my comfort zone and I love it. But it's also like I grew up on that and I learned it in a very specific way. And the guitar, it's just like I'm teaching myself. It's just fun. Like it's sort of like this new poetry that I've never read. And so that's kind of how the songs kind of started writing themselves. And I think a lot of that was because I just was letting myself enjoy it.
So would you say you prefer studio work or performing live, and why?
They're so different. I mean, like, I really love the studio. I don't know. I just get really excited in the studio. And I think there's just something about like the endless possibilities of like what you can make and like
Right.
manipulating the sound or not, or like making it raw, and something about too like making something permanent. I just think there's that can be like anxiety inducing, but also I think there's something like really cool about that, of being like, I'm going to make this thing and then it can never go away.
Right.
Like no one can take that, like
Yeah.
it's going to be, it's made, it's there in the world, in the universe. So that I love, and performing live I also love, but I don't love always like what goes into it, like in terms of the constant marketing and things like that. The actual just like playing, I love, and connecting with the audience, I love. Um, Everything else that goes with it is not, I don't as much love, or it's been nice to take a break from it actually during the pandemic. But I mean, playing live, like when it's a good show, and there's nothing like that. And the people in the room, the energy, I mean, that can't be duplicated. So as you know, it's just very special. Uh, so I like them both, but I'd say like I am especially fond of studio time.
Yeah. Yeah. And just to go back on the pandemic, how has it affected you, like both personally and as an artist?
I think I realized, you know, right when the pandemic hit, I actually had realized that I'd sort of hit a little bit of a wall where I had been, the year before I had released The Unkindness, and like kind of was doing a lot of the lead up into that in 2018. And then that year was touring, and just it felt like I was kind of in a constant promotional cycle of playing shows a lot, releasing stuff. And it was all great, but I realized I was kind of putting myself in this hamster wheel where I was just like, if a day went by where I wasn't doing something to, promote my work, I felt like I wasn't doing enough, and I was putting a lot of pressure on myself. And I just kind of felt like I was in this cycle. And I was like, in February of 2020, actually, I was like, I played that show at 54 Below, which was really special. But after that, I was like, I need a pause. I need to kind of like relook at things. I need to reexamine what I really want. And then the pandemic happened. So like for me personally as an artist, I was actually pretty lucky because I did have to cancel a few things, but it's not like I had a huge tour lined up that I had to cancel. It's not like I had this big project I was supposed to release that it got derailed. Like I actually consider myself like very, very lucky in that regard. And so it kind of like forced me to really, really slow down and kind of like take a look at what I want, and that I need to like be a lot kinder to myself. Like as an artist, as a person, like I can tell myself like, you're doing enough, and like it's okay also to like take some time and do nothing. Like I think that's like you can like let yourself rest, like let yourself recharge. Like I think that's crucial as an artist. Like you don't have to go 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 go. So like that's the biggest thing I've really gotten out of this time in the past many months. Actually, how many months has it been at this
Oh
point?
my God. I think it's too many.
10,
10,
11,
something
10?
like that. Yeah.
10 months. So yeah. Yes.
And yeah, let's not even go there. I'm not going to think about it.
It's fair
But
enough.
no, that totally resonates with me. It's just like, we're taught to think about our worth in terms of what we're producing, how much we're producing. And that's like the capitalistic cop in your head. It's just like, oh yeah, if you're not doing something, then you're just like you're worthless or something. And
Totally.
which isn't true. It's just like totally not true at all. So
It's not true. It's also like I was reading something on the other day online. It was something like how to best like promote your your songs on like Spotify. And then it was like, you can be like Beyonce and
Oh my
like,
God.
Drake and do this. And I'm like,
Oh my God.
I would love to do that. But like, I don't it's just me here. Like, it's like me. I have like a team of two.
Right.
And like, it's great for Beyonce. I love Beyonce. Right. And like, that's awesome. But like, I'd love to be like Taylor Swift and drop my record with no notice and be like, surprise, like I did this and have a bunch of people listen to it and be interested in it and buy it. But like, that's it's not how it works. And like, it's just like reminding myself, like, I'm me. I'm not like a huge team. Like I run my own label, like, and that's great. And like, and I'm doing my best, and that's enough.
Yeah. And you're doing a great job, I think.
Oh, thanks, Nikki. That means a lot.
So, to me, at least, you seem really prolific, like as a musician and a writer. What generally is the process for you when creating music? Do you have a particular ritual you follow?
No, I was about to say I wish I did, but then I'm like, no, I'm going to embrace my own process, which is that I have no process. Like,
oh, wow.
And that means that sometimes I am very prolific, but it goes in fits and spurts, sort of. Like sometimes I write a lot, and then sometimes I go months and I don't write anything. And I've also had to kind of learn like to live with just the like baseline anxiety that comes with the like non-prolific periods, and then also try to like ease up, like try to get rid of some of that anxiety by like trusting that it will come back and that it's not gone, that it's just sort of like hibernating for a little bit, and then it will come back out. And then that's been happening so far. So I'm just hoping that keeps happening that way, because I never really know like when it's going to hit. I know like Tori Amos calls it the muse. Like, like she's like, I don't know when the muse is going to visit me. And however you like think of it, I just try to make myself open to like when I do feel it. Like I do feel it come, whatever that it is. It like kind of gnaws at me, and I'm like, okay, there's like there's a song coming, and if I sit down at the piano, it's gonna manifest itself. Right. So like that's the best I can do, is like try to like be in tune with that and listen to when it's there, and if it is there, like make myself available to create. That's like might be a really weird way to explain it, but I guess that's as much of like a process as I have.
Yeah, that sounds like a process. And like how I know, like I read somewhere that some people believe that during the time that you're like, you're not producing something or writing something or creating a song, you're actually resting. And rejuvenating yourself to create another song, or you're inspiring yourself to, you're experimenting with other things that might not seem like it's related to your art, but it is related to it, and it fuels that. It's sort of like a synergy. I don't know.
Oh my gosh. Yes. I know people can't see this, how emphatically I'm nodding, but I just like, yes, I so get that and believe in that so much. Like, first of all, I don't think creativity is an endless well. Like, I think that you do have to recharge. And so there's that part of it. But then I totally agree. I think like living your life at all, like you're always an artist, you're always a writer. Like you're never not a songwriter. So like everything you take in, like is part of the process. Like it might manifest itself in a song. You just never know. So I think that's another part of it, is like trying to keep your eyes open, or just like keep yourself open rather to the world, I guess, which can be hard when the world feels very tough.
Yeah.
And then I go back to like, okay, then you also need to know when to take care of yourself and like when to give yourself a break. But anyway, you said it much more eloquently than I just did, but I agree with what you're saying and totally feel that.
Yeah, totally. So back to rejection letter.
Yes.
So I wanted to know, like, total disclosure. I should have said this earlier, but Mackenzie and I used to be in a band together, and we've known each other for some years now. And I've been listening to your music for years now, and I think that you're amazing. Um,
Thanks, Nikki.
and I just wanted to know, I know personally, like, kind of can guess how Rejection Letter is different from your previous albums, but I wanted you to, like, just tell the world how is it different from, your other albums?
How is it different? I think, well, I know I kind of said this before, but I do think it's just like it's a little bit different side of me. It's a bit more complex. I think it's a little angrier, a little grittier. I think it's a little bolder. I think it's bolder in lyrical territory. I think it's bolder sonically. And it's just kind of like it feels the most like me out of everything I've released. And like every time I release something, it feels authentic to me. Otherwise, I wouldn't release it really. But
Mhm.
this one just feels like a more like whole view, I guess, of like who I am, what I think, and what I think is important. And so that I'm just really excited about it. I'm thrilled with how it came out, and it just yeah, I think I'm the most excited about this record actually than anything else I've done so far.
Oh, wow. Wow, that's amazing. That's
Yeah.
totally amazing. So how would you say, like, your sound differs from other genre-related artists?
Oh man, that's a good question. You know, it's funny because like I mean, you know how it goes with marketing, like people always want to know like what's your genre? Or like you have to like fill in, the like drop down menu of like country, like R&B, like
Yeah,
classical. And I'm like, I don't know. Like
exactly.
but I would say like, I have the classical training. So like that's always in there. I love, Celtic music, so that's always in there. Um but I think that for this record, I think like in the past I've like gone a little bit more like kind of folk, even though it's never like pure folk, but this one is a little bit more like rock, like
Yeah,
alternative
yeah,
alt rock,
yeah.
which I'm like pretty pumped about and like
Mhm.
feels good. So I don't know. I think the music's pretty genreless. Like I would say that about your music. I think your music's genreless. I think some of the most exciting music out there is genreless, and I think that most modern music truly is. I
Right,
think there's so much crossover, and it's getting harder and harder to like really put things in a box, which
exactly,
is good because things shouldn't be put in a box.
right. It doesn't
What's fun
belong
in
there.
that? Exactly. Exactly.
Um, so thinking about your influences, I am curious, which artists you get compared to the most and whether you appreciate those comparisons. Also, is there anyone who influenced you that you think people would find surprising?
Mm. Those are very good questions. I mean, a classic one is always going to be Tori Amos comparison. I mean, I've been getting that since I was in college. First of all, like redhead playing the piano, but also like I'm always flattered because just I love her. I think she's fierce. I think we are quite different, but I also think I see the similarities. Like I see it. So it's not like I hear that and I'm like, oh God, another Tory comparison. I'm like, no, I get it and I love her. So like that one's always out there. More recently, Phoebe Bridgers has been out there, which again, I love Phoebe Bridgers. I also think we're really different in a lot of ways, but I get it. It's not like I hear that and I'm like, what are they talking about? Like we're nothing alike. Like, no,
Yeah.
I get it. Like a lot of times I listen to her music and I'm like, oh yeah, like this, I feel this very deeply. And I feel like I really get where she's coming from. Um, in terms of like somebody who would be a surprise? Like that's such a good question. And I don't really feel like I have a great answer because I feel like I'm influenced by so many artists and it really depends on who I'm listening to, like kind of in that moment. So it could be like anyone from Debussy to Aretha Franklin to the Stones. Like it's just really depends on like who's kind of like in my ear at the moment, like who I have on the record player. Like everything I listen to influences what I write.
just to go back to like what you get compared to, who you get compared to, do you have a suspicion that maybe it's because that the first person that they would think about is like another woman who's just somewhat similar to you, but just because she's out there, not recognizing that you both are different in some way?
Totally. I mean, like, I do think sometimes, and this is not true for all journalists, but some journalists who I feel like some might be a little bit lazy and
Right.
want to
Right.
just like
Yeah.
find an easy comparison.
Right.
I mean, at one point, a comparison that got made to something I put out was to Rachel Platten. I didn't even know who she was, but I listened to her and I was like,
This
I
is
don't
not
hear
me.
this at all. I was like, I don't. And at the time, like she had just released like a piano, like forward track, and then
Right.
I just released a piano forward track, and it was like Rachel Platten, and I'm like, like nothing against Rachel Platten, but I don't hear that at all. So like,
Right.
yeah, I think sometimes that happens. I also think like with the Tory thing, that was a comparison that got made very early on and was like in one of the first, press write-ups. And so so that kind of like once that was out there, I feel like that's kind of like forever
Right.
there. Which again, like I don't mind that, but
Yeah.
yeah, it is an easy comparison to make, that one.
Yeah. Can you tell us when the album is going to be coming out?
I can, in fact. It's going to be out April 2nd.
Okay.
Yeah, which if like when we first set that date, it felt so far and away, but we were like, with just kind of all of the uncertainty is like the most overused word, I guess, of like 2020 into 2021. But like with all the uncertainty going on, it's good to build in a longer release cycle. So now I'm very glad we did it that way, but I am eager for everybody to hear the whole record.
Yeah, I can't wait. I totally can't wait. What are your plans for like supporting the release? Are you going to be doing virtual shows, or is there going to be another video like the one from Martha's Vineyard? Like, what are your plans?
Yes to both. There will be a video for Afraid.
Oh,
and which I'm excited about. And then I'm working on another video as well. And then live stream shows, definitely. I'm still figuring out like what I want to do for the actual release, because I'd like to do it with the band because, so far in isolation, I've just been doing solo streams for obvious reasons. But if we could find like a safe way for the band to do a show, I think that'd be super fun. So like that's kind of my goal, is to do that, and then I'll probably do some other solo streams along the way. But yeah, hoping for a full band release.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So I only have one last question, and it's just kind of on the topic, but not really.
Go for it.
Are you reading anything interesting right now that you can talk about?
Oh, yes, I actually am. I'm reading Hood Feminism.
Oh yes, I've heard of that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's I think the author's Mickey Kendall.
Yeah.
I don't want to mess that up. But I just started reading it. I'm probably like 3 or 4 chapters in. And yeah, it's good. I feel like yeah, as a white woman, I'm like, this is essential reading for all of us. And this is my first time actually doing it through audiobook, which I've never actually done before, but I thought it'd be interesting to hear her kind of
voice.
Her voice. Yeah, exactly. Okay. And I've actually really enjoyed that. It's been, I've liked it. It's been good.
Yeah. Awesome.
So, well, yeah, I definitely recommend it.
Thank you so much, Mackenzie, for being here and for allowing me to like examine everything about your new album.
Thank you. It's seriously, Nikki, like your podcast is my favorite. And every time I listen to a new episode, like your voice comes on and it's so like energizing and like It just makes me feel great. And I really have like discovered such great music through it too. So I'm very honored to be here and in the company that you've had on this podcast. So thank you.
Thank you so much. And with that, definitely go check out Mackenzie's album when it comes out, Rejection Letter. And again, the date is April
2nd.
April 2nd. And also, check out whatever she's going to, bring out, like whatever shows that she's going to have. You should go and check it out. She's an amazing artist again. She's one of my, really good friends, and I really appreciate her. So yeah, check it out.
Thanks, Nikki.
So that was singer-songwriter Mackenzie Shivers. Isn't she just awesome? I loved talking to her about all the things. Just brilliant. So anyway, we're going to play one last single from Mackenzie's upcoming album, Rejection Letter, scheduled to be released on April 2nd. And the single is called Afraid. Listen up.
It's hard to picture a world where you're not there. I call your name, it hangs in the humid air. 3 cheers for the guardians, the ones that got us here. Their days are numbered. Fuck, it feels so unfair. Life's a morbid affair. Get used to it. Put your hands on my body. Remind me I'm still here. It's no one's fault. It's everyone's crime. There's no use in hindering the hands of time. Can I be afraid and still be free? I am afraid you will become of me. Oh, we all want heat, but we don't like fire. What if these offenses are secret desires? A bloody fool is all I see, staring straight back at me. Can I be afraid and still be free? I am afraid of what will become of me. Can I be afraid?
Thanks for listening to When We See Each Other. I'm your host, Nikkiesha McLeod. This show is produced and edited by Jeremiah McVay. If you like what you hear in this show, please rate and review it in Good Pods, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or anywhere else that allows that. And please follow us wherever you happen to listen to podcasts. Doing so helps us to expand our audience and is much appreciated. You can find more information about the show at stereoactivemedia.com/whenweseeeachother. And you can get in touch with us at stereoactivemedia@gmail.com. Talk to you later.
This podcast is produced by Stereoactive Media.